The master of your fate. Orison Swett Martin wrote, a highly magnetized piece of steel will attract and lift a piece of unmagnetized steel 10 times its own weight. Demagnetize that same piece of steel and it will be powerless to attract or lift even a feather's weight. Now, my friends, there is the same difference between the man who is highly magnetized by a sublime faith in himself, and the man who is demagnetized by his lack of faith, his doubts, his fears, that there is between the magnetized and the demagnetized pieces of steel. If two men of equal ability, one magnetized by a divine self-confidence, the other demagnetized by fear and doubt, are given similar tasks, one will succeed and the other will fail. The self-confidence of the one multiplies his powers 100-fold, the lack of it subtracts 100-fold from the power of the other. When Frank A. Vanderlip, former president of the National City Bank, was a struggling youngster, he asked a successful friend what one thing he would urge a young man to do who is anxious to make his way in the world. "Look as though you have already succeeded," his friend told him. Shakespeare expresses the same thought in another way: assume a virtue if you have it not. Look the part. Dress the part. Act the part. Be successful in your own thought first. It won't be long before you will be successful before the world as well. David V. Bush, in his book Applied Psychology and Scientific Living, says, "Man is like the wireless operator. Man is subject to miscellaneous wrong thought currents if his mind is not in tune with the infinite, or if he is not keyed up to higher vibrations than those of negation. A man who thinks courageous thoughts sends these courageous thought waves through the universal ether until they lodge in the consciousness of someone who is tuned to the same courageous key. Think of a strong thought, a courageous thought, a prosperity thought, and these thoughts will be received by someone who is strong, courageous, and prosperous. It is just as easy to think in terms of abundance as to think in terms of poverty. If we think poverty thoughts, we become the sending and receiving stations for poverty thoughts. We send out a poverty mental wireless and it reaches the consciousness of some poverty-stricken receiver. We get what we think. It is just as easy to think in terms of abundance, opulence, and prosperity as it is to think in terms of lack, limitation, and poverty. If a man will raise his rate of vibration by faith currents or hope currents, these vibrations go through the universal mind and lodge in the consciousness of people who are keyed to the same tune. Whatever you think is sometime, somewhere, received by a person who is tuned to your thought key. If a man is out of work and he thinks thoughts of success, prosperity, harmony, position and growth, just as surely as his thoughts are things as Shakespeare says, someone will receive his vibrations of success, prosperity, harmony, position and growth. If we are going to be timid, selfish, penurious, and picky-unish in our thinking, these thought waves which we have started in the universal ether will go forth until they come to a mental receiving station of the same caliber. Birds of a feather flock together, and minds of like thinking are attracted one to the other. If you need money, all you have to do is to send up your vibrations to a strong, courageous receiving station, and someone who can meet your needs will be attracted to you or you to him. When you learn that you are entitled to win in any right undertaking in which you may be engaged, you will win. When you learn that you have a right to a legitimate dominion over your own affairs, you will have dominion over them. The promise is that we can do all things through the mind that was in Christ. The heaven mind plays no favorites. No one human being has any more power than any other. It is simply that few of us use the power that is in our hands. The great men of the world are in no wise super beings. They are ordinary creatures like you and me, who have stumbled upon the way of drawing upon their subconscious mind and threw it upon the God mind. Speaking of Henry Ford's phenomenal success, his friend Thomas A. Edison said of him, he draws upon his subconscious mind. The secret of being what you have it in you to be is simply this: decide now what it is you want of life, exactly what you wish your future to be. Plan it out in detail. Vision it from start to finish. See yourself as you are now, doing those things you have always wanted to do. Make them real in your mind's eye, feel them, live them, believe them, especially at the moment of going to sleep, when it is easiest to reach your subconscious mind, and you will soon be seeing them in real life. It matters not whether you are young or old, rich or poor. The time to begin is now. It is never too late. Remember those lines of Appleton '2 I knew his face the moment that he passed triumphant in the thoughtless, cruel throng. I gently touched his arm, he smiled at me, he was the man that once I meant to be. Where I had failed, he'd won from life, success. Where I had stumbled, with sure feet he stood. Alike yet unalike we faced the world, and through the stress, he found that life was good. And I? The bitter wormwood in the glass, the shadowed way along which failures pass. Yet as I saw him thus, Joy came to me. He was the man that once I meant to be. We did not speak. But in his sapient eyes I saw the spirit that had urged him on, the courage that had held him through the fight had once been mine. I thought, can it be gone? He felt that unmasked question, felt it, so his pale lips formed the one-word answer, no. Too late to win? No. Not too late for me. He is the man that still I mean to be. The secret of power lies in understanding the infinite resources of your own mind. When you begin to realize that the power to do anything, to be anything, to have anything, is within yourself, then and then only will you take your proper place in the world. As Bruce Barton put it, nothing splendid has ever been achieved except by those who dared believe that something inside them was superior to circumstance.